Hello, everyone. It's time for the ReQuest. I am Captain Logan, and joining me as always is Austin, the Day Ghost. Good evening, Austin. I feel like I haven't seen you in like a month.
You can tell we haven't seen each other in a while because we did like a 20-minute unrecorded Jurassic Park retrospective.
Yeah,
The
sorry about
second
the
we
late
got on
start,
the call.
folks. Austin and I haven't talked in a little while, and we weren't looking at the clock, and that's very unprofessional of us. Apologies. I thought you were gonna
All my
say,
fault.
I thought you were gonna say you could tell because your entire visual appearance has changed, like your facial appearance has changed.
Yeah, also that, I guess, yeah.
Austin shows up after a week. Suddenly he's cosplaying Dum Dum Dugan.
Actually, the bowler hat. I need to go get one tomorrow.
You need to
I'll have
get
it for
that.
next show. Mhm.
Well, anyway,
He is the only character in Marvel that boxed out Godzilla. That is an impressive feat.
you have to bring that up every time that character comes up.
Because it's the best detail about Dum Dum Dugan. What other things has he done besides that?
So for tonight, one reply requested that we sample a really popular Netflix series based on video games. And Austin, this may be to date the most critically acclaimed video game adaptation. 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. This thing is heralded as a huge game changer for animation. It's only 4 years old, came out in 2021. This is Arcane. This is based on League of Legends. And there's only 2 seasons, and the second season they've decided will be the last. And it's so massively popular that you might have expected it to continue on long enough for people to not like it anymore. But they were smarter than that, Austin, and
Especially for Netflix.
They ended it before that could happen. So that's good.
Especially for Netflix. But just wait, Cap. When we get the Chicken Jockey show on HBO, that'll be the most highly approved video game adaptation.
Well, you're right about that with Netflix, but Netflix, I don't think bankrolled this themselves. Like, I think they just distributed it.
Oh, okay. I assumed that they were the ones that put this out
I
because
don't
they've
think
had a ton of video game
they
animation
have,
over
yeah,
the
but I don't
last
think
few
they
years.
actually put the money up for it initially.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Considering that the company that produced this, I forget the game company involved with or that owns this. I'm out of my depth here. I'm out of my league. This is stuff I don't know anything about.
Out of
Uh,
your league.
yeah, my league of legends. But anyway, they aired this online somewhere before they even like the first episode or the first 3 episodes, I can't remember, before it officially went out on Netflix. So they definitely had
Mhm.
more control over it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I
Riot
didn't look into
Riot
the.
Games. Riot Games. There it is.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I didn't look into the making of this. I just assumed that it was made by Netflix. I figured they were like, "Oh, Castlevania, that worked out really well. Let's
Well,
bankroll a
well,
ton more
that's
of
that's
these."
probably why they took it. This show apparently took 6 years to make, Austin.
Oh my
It
God.
was in production going all the way back to 15, and it was supposed to come out in 2020, and then the pandemic, like with so many things, put it back. And then it took them another 3 or 4 years to get the next season out.
I guess that makes some sense because I remember when this came out in 2021, and I was like, "That feels weirdly late." But if they started in 2015, I think that makes a ton of sense.
So League of Legends is a thing that no one will be surprised to hear me say. I know nothing about at all. I almost said next to nothing. No, nothing at all. I had to look up even the gameplay type with. I thought it was an MMORPG. It's not, but apparently
Mhm.
they're developing one. But it's a strategy shooter that apparently going back to 19 regularly had like 8 million consecutive players. I don't know if it's still that big, but it's crazy how long this has been around that it was still that popular in 2019.
Yeah, my oldest brother, so the one like directly after me, this is like the main thing he played through like middle school and beyond. And I think still plays now. He's like a hardcore League of Legends player, but I never really got into it. I've seen him play it a little bit here and there, but that's about it.
So the big thing I kept hearing about this show, or I say I kept hearing about this show after I found out this was requested because I didn't know what this was. But people swore up and down, "Don't worry, Cap. This is very watchable if you don't know anything about the material." And I've been told things about that before, where like it's kind of true and it's kind of not. Where I like it introduces you fine to the material, but you're having to play catch up a little bit. If I didn't know this was based on a video game, I would assume that this was its own thing in the first place, that it wasn't based on anything, that there wasn't any pre-existing lore. It does that perfectly. I think it also helps that that is a multiplayer game in the first place, so it's got a lot of lore and a world that's built, but I assume there aren't a lot of like main regular characters you're focused on because you're just playing as like whoever you're playing as. So I assume a lot of the cast in this is made up for this. I don't know if that's true because I've never played that game. But it, but
Yeah, I
it
think
seems
there's like playable characters that you play as, but like that's kind of it. And I don't
okay.
know if any of them are in this.
But it sounds like, just from what little research I had time to do, that it's the sort of thing that's really ripe for adaptation, where you build a story around a thing that is a really interesting world and maybe has some pretty clear baked in ideas to it, but you can like chart your own course and do a ground, from the ground up narrative. I honestly, Austin, at least if you are a good storyteller, if you know what you're doing, I think that's kind of easier to do than to adapt something like, I mean, the show is good, don't get me wrong, but something like Last of Us, that is a story in the first place, and the gameplay is almost more in service of the story than the other way around. Like, I think this is actually kind of an easier thing to do.
No, I agree. Like when they announced The Last of Us, I was like, what's the point? Like it's basically already that anyways. And then it's something like, that I think would work well with like Nintendo, for example, where it's like you have the base of something and
Metroid,
you can kind of just
Zelda, any of
run
that
off with your
stuff.
own way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the point of, not to get too in the weeds with this, the point of
Mhm.
adapting something like A Last of Us is introducing it to people that aren't going to play video games. Like
Mhm.
it's the same reason that you want to see some really great comic stories adapted in other mediums, because comics are kind of niche and some people just aren't interested in words and pictures. In the same way that some people aren't interested in interactive storytelling, and
Mhm.
so in those particular cases, you kind of want to see as close to a one-to-one adaptation uh, as you can get, at least much of the time. And I realize Last of Us isn't exactly that, but like you want to
Mhm.
get kind of close. But something like this, it's kind of best of both worlds, where you don't have to care about video games, but if you do, and if you played that, there's maybe another layer. Um, so I admire that about it a lot.
Mhm. No, I mean that is really cool. It's also just a great looking show. Um, that people are saying it looks like a hybrid between the Clone Wars TV show and Spider Verse. Um, I didn't really think Spider Verse during it, but I was thinking about Clone Wars and that it looked like a better version of that.
I guess I agree with that. I I saw a lot of comparison when I was looking into stuff with this. A lot of comparison to Spider Verse in it being real innovative for like animation and for multimedia. So I imagine some people are probably thinking Spider Verse just because it winds up
Mhm.
in the same conversation a lot. I I was not as blown away and wowed by it as a lot of people are. Like I do think it's a good looking show, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna be a little bit off on my own ledge with this because it's all taste issue. I love the 2D stuff. I'm not a big fan of the character models.
Mhm.
Like I
No,
found
I mean that's
myself,
fair.
I had a hard time not. This is just me. Like so grain of salt, because I agree with you, and I get why people love what this looks like, but I liked the 2D stuff enough. I kind of wished it was all just 2D. Like
Mhm.
it
No, I
felt
mean
like
that's like my preferred thing, but
really good cutscenes. Like
mhm.
you're watching a show made up of video game cutscenes, which is certainly appropriate for this, and that's not a dig
Mhm.
at it at all. Uh, but that's just I don't know, call me old school. That and and that's not to say that I haven't loved 3D animation in the past, of course.
No,
But
and I mean, if we're talking about preference, like absolutely, I prefer 2D. But I just thought for this material, coming from a video game, I appreciated more of that like cutscene kind of aesthetic.
what it's got over Clone Wars for me is the characters don't look like action figures. They don't look like they're made of plastic.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah,
I
exactly.
I do really appreciate that. But I think it's wonderfully well storyboarded. I appreciate
Hmm.
how much of the storytelling is visual storytelling. That opening flashback scene, there's not a lick of dialogue, and it's excellent. And kind of minimal dialogue throughout. Austin, one of the things that jumped out at me and kind of surprised me with this is how. Uh, Kind of on the surface archetypal and familiar it is. There's not a lot here that I haven't seen before. Like it's at least in these first 3 episodes, it's very repackaged with lots of other fantasy, science fantasy um, stories, good and evil type stories, but a lot more subtle and nuanced than a lot of the things that it was reminding me of.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I had some of that too, where I was like, this doesn't feel wholly original. Not that that's an issue, but
Mm-mm. But
like I
it
do feel like I'm jumping into something that I'm more familiar with, just done really well.
Yeah, because I will say at first, like first episode, I thought it was a little slow going, and and again, just first viewing, only have a chance to look at these things once, so this is just a first impressions stream. This is involved. There's a lot here we're not going to have time to talk about probably, but Austin, I worried at first that it was a little bit too typical, and I started seeing the again nuance and the layers in it the further I went. Where I'm like, oh, there's a lot of uh, like characters that might fall to the dark side, kinds of trope in this, but it isn't. Here are the good guys. Here are the bad guys. It isn't like you have Rebellion Empire kind of, but
Mhm.
within this version of the Empire, you have good guys and bad guys, and within this version of a rebellion, you have good guys and bad guys, and you see the kind of fall from grace and redemptive characters, and the like pair of characters that are friends turned bad in both of those playing fields. And I really
Mhm.
appreciate that while you have the haves and the have-nots, while you've got the real typical classism situation going on. The oppressors, the assumed oppressors, are not all the bad guys, and the assumed oppressees are not all the good guys. It's
Mhm.
much more complicated than that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, like you said, you have a very dark opening, and then your scene right after that, where they're on their kind of heist thing, it was reminding me of the new Dungeons and Dragons movie. And I thought it was really cool how well it is able to balance the tone between getting like more lighthearted, but also staying darker in places too, and like kind of jumping back and forth here and there.
I agree with that. I honestly could have used a little bit more. Like this is almost a like buzzword these days. I could have used a little bit more humor of the type that is already in the show. So I don't mean I needed it
Mhm.
ramped up. I didn't need it to be MCU about it. We're like we stop everything, we get real self aware. But I was I don't need like I like that there's not really a comic relief character. And spoilers: the closest we get to comic relief characters die by the end of the third episode. Uh,
Yeah, and I was shocked by that. I was like,
I
"Oh,
was
okay."
too. I was really surprised by how much of the cast we lose by the end of. We're gonna spoil things. It's a request. By the end of what we saw here, I also Austin kind of arbitrarily decided to watch the first 3 episodes with this. We always sampled these things. We watched the pilot and then at least the next episode, if not one after that, and looking at the episode count, knowing that there were only, I think these are 10 episode seasons. Um,
I think it was
or maybe
9,
it's nine.
was what I
I
saw.
thought, well, the first three will be a third or close to a third. And it turns out that the first three episodes have a beginning, middle, and end, and that it's basically like a pilot movie, and it's in 3 acts. The episodes we watched, Austin, really well structured, really tightly structured. Not a scene that
Mhm.
felt unnecessary or out of place.
Yeah, for sure. When I thought it did a good job of feeling, like you said, like kind of like boom, boom, boom. Here's like a little trinity that we watched in episodes, and that they are kind of separate, but also like put together. Like I felt like, oh, this is act one of a bigger story at the
That's
same
it.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which makes sense with the episode count, right? So
yeah, exactly.
you have a beginning, middle, and end for this first chapter. So the chapter is in 3 acts, and then
Mm.
the show will be in 3 acts. That's excellent. I kind of wish
No, it's just
everything
really
did
well
that,
structured.
or maybe not everything, but if it's gonna be 9 or 10 episodes, I wish they were all like that. And you gotta give them a lot of credit for. This is a really expensive show, and you got to give them a lot of credit for 40 to 45 minute episodes in animation. That's
Mhm.
really unusual, and it warrants it. It doesn't feel stretched. And another comparison I would make to Spider-Verse, and Austin doesn't have a dog in this because he physically can't watch those, but I do have the same thing I do with Spider-Verse, where I kind of forget that I'm watching animation.
Mhm.
Like it's clearly an adult show made for adults, and it feels like it happens to be in animation because stylistically that's the right choice for this, and what it's adapting and the world that it wants to connect to, and the players that are already interested in it. Like, this is the aesthetic, this is what it should look like, and B, you can just accomplish more of what they want to put on screen in animation without distracting me with that's pretty obvious CG, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
When you get your airships and uh, all the steampunk stuff we're doing.
That Connor guy also says that Netflix released this 3 episodes at a time. I guess that makes a lot of sense
Well, there you go.
by what we're saying. Yeah.
So it's basically what they're basically doing then, Austin, is they're intentionally making a trilogy of films that they then cut into 45-minute episodes,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, and I mean, some other 9 episode shows that we have right now are just meandering, and you have to accept that we remade them halfway through.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
You can have
especially
this where it's
because
properly structured.
yeah, and I mean, it's easy to throw shade at that, and what are you gonna do when you're stuck with some footage that you've already got? But yeah, it's too bad that didn't work out the way this did in the first place. Yeah. Uh, we're not gonna name any names here.
Yeah,
But
exactly. I don't
it rhymes with scared devil.
know.
Anyway.
Oh wait, no, that's too close. Call it Dare Skevel.
Oh, okay. That's good. For the record, I have not watched anything past the third episode with Born Again, which we reviewed, so I can't speak to the rest of it. So what we're making fun of is just what little we've seen of that, but we've seen as much of that as we've seen of this. In
There you
fact,
go.
Austin, give us just a real quick synopsis of what we watched, just to give us a place to start to talk a little bit more about character and story.
Yeah, so we have a kind of main family that we're following, which are 2 sisters, and they live with their dad, who used to be like this good warrior back in the day, and we're kind of after the fall of things. It's like Cap said, very Empire Rebellion type thing,
Sorry, is he their
and
blood father? I wasn't sure about that.
that I'm not sure. I
Okay.
don't know if I think I assumed he was, but
I
now that you
kept
say that,
assuming he wasn't. I'm not sure. Somebody in the comments can tell us.
mhm.
And I assume they're
But
blood
then
sisters. I think that's pretty definite.
yeah,
But
yeah, I think so too.
anyway, sorry.
No, you're okay. And then there's also a guy that has eggs that are science magic. and he's trying to get them to make science magic, and they're like, no, no arcane, that's bad.
And he lives in the high society city, and they live in the seedy
Mhm.
underbelly.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he's their adopted father. Okay. I mean,
Okay,
I guess that makes sense because all the other people
I
in their
thought
little
so.
group call him dad too. So I guess that makes sense. I don't. I think I just assumed that the daughters were his, but then the other ones were adopted.
Yeah, because the way everybody else in that little town talks about it, they refer to all four of them as his kids, and so I thought he was just kind of taking care of them. I thought it was almost more of a like a uh, foster situation, or like
Hmm.
self
No, I mean,
self
you're right.
self created kind of foster situation.
Hmm.
Yeah, so they break into uh this, so they're basically scavengers, and they break into this young young guy, his apartment, who happens to be working for the science ministry or whatever it is, or is he in school and he's doing research? Is it that kind of situation?
I think so. Yeah, like he's because he is doing research for them.
And then
So
they steal some stuff out of his place, and the younger girl, I gotta bring up character names again. She has an odd name. What is it? Powder? Uh, Powder. Gets her hands on the MacGuffin of the story, and immediately I'm going, oh great, it's this kind of MacGuffin situation, and I lost that by the second episode. Like I was fully on board with that whole thing. Like pretty quickly, it became clear that it wasn't going to just be everybody's after this thing, and so I really
yeah, it's a little bit
appreciated
more interesting.
that. Yeah, that's a plot device in the right kind of way, which is good. But anyway,
Mhm.
and he is trying to usher in a new era of science and magic working in tandem, where he thinks that magic can be created and it doesn't have to just be brought forth by people that are born with magical abilities. And there's this really interesting thematic question, and this was one of the things that most resonated with me, Austin, about how far progress should go. About when you draw the line between playing God or between responsibly harnessing what the universe has given us. And I
Mhm.
love how like all the moral conundrums in this show. And I love how 3 episodes in, there's no preachiness in this. There's no. It doesn't come down on anything yet. Like I couldn't begin to tell you what the piece itself thinks about any of the moral questions. It's all real up in the air, and right now I feel like I'm able to kind of try to make my own mind up, but it's hard, like in the way it should be hard. There's a lot of like with various pairs of characters. Like I said, there's a lot of ends based versus virtue ethics, where you have characters where you'll have with these duos a character who thinks that whatever has to be done to complete the mission is the right thing to do, and you'll have a character on the other side that says, I'll always do the right thing no matter what, and so that's the adopted father guy. He used to have more of an ends based way of looking at things, and that got him into a lot of trouble to the point where he tried to kill his best friend, and then he's gone maybe arguably too far the other way now and isn't standing up for what he believes in. And I find myself at the end of this going, I don't know where I land on some of this. I and
Mhm.
I and I love that feeling. I love how hard it made me think about those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it does a good job at presenting ideas and not what's the word I'm looking for?
Pander or
Like I guess preach is
I
like
mean
another
I
way
mean
of saying
it
it, but I had a
it
different word in
doesn't
mind.
do
But yeah,
that, which I appreciate.
hmm yeah, no, I mean it doesn't really do either of those things. Yeah.
It's I'll just get this out of the way real quick. It's a diverse cast of characters with a pretty equal mix of men and women, and everybody has like strengths and weaknesses. It doesn't feel like the kind of thing that has to make anybody feel like overly perfect, or make anybody feel like too obviously stupidly evil. It's just it's a show with pretty well defined, complex characters with dimension.
Mhm. No, I mean I think it fits really well, like in with the fantasy genre with that, where it's like
Yeah,
each character kind of has their class, if you will, where they fit into, where they have their strengths and weaknesses, and they're like, this is the one that can do this.
yeah. The other idea that, or I shouldn't even say idea. I guess this is just more the genre we're in. But the other thing that I kind of grabbed onto with this, Austin, because this isn't naturally really my kind of thing. I think if I watched this the first episode of this, I'd go, I mean, that was fine, but I don't know if I need to keep
Mhm.
watching it.
Yeah.
I will probably finish it. Like, I think I'm more impressed with it than I'm in love with it, if that makes any sense. Just
Mhm.
like with my own personal sensibilities, and I wasn't as in love with the look at it, with the look of it as a lot of people seem to be. Um, but I really like the science fiction science fantasy blend.
Mhm.
Or I guess I should say the science and magic blend. Although this feels, I guess it is straight up science fantasy. I was gonna say, before you get to the magic stuff, you could argue that it's even more of a traditional science fiction kind of thing, but it isn't, because you're in a fantasy world in the first place. So you're not in on exactly Earth, and you have different species of characters like you do in a lot of traditional like sword and sorcery fantasy. I really like that you start in an obvious uh, fantasy world, uh, almost like a futuristic Final Fantasy kind of thing. But
Mhm.
we're not dealing with magic at all yet, and that's going to come later. And so it feels at first like a science fiction story set in a fantasy world, and I really like that blend. And there's not even any discussion of the whole, when science gets to a particular level, it looks like magic. There's just a like definite dividing line between them. Like, we have science and we have magic, and science can be used in tandem with magic, but they're different things.
Mhm. Yeah, I wonder if as the show goes on, they'll maybe merge those things a little bit more,
Yeah,
in
I'm
that
curious
way.
to see how it works, like what the rules are,
Mhm.
because we're only just to by that third episode, the place where our science kid has been allowed to try to make magic happen again, and that didn't go where
Mhm.
I thought it was going to either. I really like the politics of that.
Mhm.
And like, you really sympathize. How rare is it to sympathize with the bureaucracy, and especially in a world like this where we're oppressing an underclass, and like, I'm seeing where some of the council members are coming from in a story
Mhm.
where I'm also appreciating the oppressed underclass that feels the need to scrimp and scrape and steal and kill to survive. Like, I see both sides of it, and I think I'm supposed to. And the point of it seems to be, at the end of the day, everybody's people. And I don't know. I really like that. And then structurally, that's nice, because the first episode, we're following the the girls, the kids in the underclass, and then the second episode, and like, we're going back and forth by the second episode a little bit, but the second episode is more focused on the science kid. And the third episode, we jump back and forth a lot more, but I assumed it was just gonna be, once again, poor people good, rich people bad, and it was so refreshing that it isn't that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like fantasy in general, there's been more pushes with stuff like this to kind of move away from the like standard good versus evil thing. So I do think it falls into that, but I think it's really well handled here.
Uh, I'm just looking at character names again because I just keep generically calling people like Science Kid. But yeah, so you have so
Oh,
you
he's
have
Bill
so
Nye.
you have Vi and Powder, and then you have Jace, and those are kind of your main, um, arguably your main kind of heroic characters at first. And then by the end of the third episode, it looks like with the sisters, with Vi and Powder, you might be getting into yet another uh, friendship turned into enemies, like you have with so many other pairs in this. Uh, and I also didn't see that coming. I think um I wasn't blown away by the show until the last 15 minutes of what we watched. Like
Mm.
I was intrigued, I was impressed, I was surprised by the nuance of it. And then you got those last 15 minutes and it went not at all where I thought any of it was going to go. I was shocked by the character deaths. I was particularly um sorry, I'm gonna look at actual character names. We just watched this. There's so many people in this, but particularly the father figure. What is his name? It starts with a V. I can't
Oh,
I can't find him right away. Why is he not Vander?
uh,
Vander, there it is.
Mander.
Yeah, I
Okay.
found
No,
it.
I'm having the actor's name mixed up, and I was like um the actor's name is like JD something. You said it starts with a V, and I'm like, it was throwing me off. Sorry. Okay, we're
I
good.
and I realize he can't. There's no way he's dead. Like he has to come back as a monster or something, like, but he
Mhm.
appears to be dead by the end of this, and I was surprised that we went there with it, but I didn't expect to break up the girls like that.
Yeah. Well, I think like after the end of the second episode, I was like, okay, the like dad's gonna die at some point. It just surprised me that it was then at the end of the next episode. I thought it maybe
Sure.
could have been a few episodes later, but I was like, oh, this is like your or like, yeah, I guess like Uncle Ben or like Obi-Wan type thing. Like he's gonna die in that way.
Yeah, and in this case, it's kind of more tragic and more screwed up than that because it would be like an Uncle Ben for two characters, one of which is partly responsible for it. And so like
Hmm.
now it gets really sticky. The drama of this is just real juicy, right? Like
Hmm.
it's kind of like a mix between like Greek epic poetry and Shakespeare. Uh
That's like a full Kool-Aid mix of
yeah.
juicy drama.
Let me do a couple super chats here. Chewbacca's Lover, $2 super
Mhm.
chat. Thanks for the support, guys. Is the show's visuals slash animation big screen worthy? I think so. Or close.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more things, in big screen animation that look like this. So, yeah, I would say so.
I would also argue that there's a lot more. Like we've blurred the line so much that there's lots of stuff on TV that is big screen worthy, and there's a lot of stuff that's not. There's a lot of stuff that's pretending to be that isn't, and there's a lot of stuff on the big screen that's not big screen worthy.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Because everything wants to be cinematic now. So like we just don't
Mhm.
have that line that we used to of this is what TV looks like, this is what big screen looks like. Everything wants you to think it should be seen on a big screen, even if it's not made for the big
Yeah,
screen.
I mean, even that new Looney Tunes movie, like I didn't realize that was supposed to be made for Max originally. I was like, this animation looks really great, and then I
Yeah,
found out
and I
afterwards
didn't
that
go
it was
early enough.
supposed to be for TV.
I didn't get to see it in the theater. So I'm glad you got to see it on the big screen.
It was only in the theater for all of 20 seconds, so you literally had to be there those 20 seconds.
I mean, I don't even think it was a full 2 weeks. Like I think it was like 11 days maybe that was in the theater. I might be wrong
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that. Dan
exactly.
Schneider, $5 super chat. There is an episode later that seems to homage Scott Snyder Batman. Oh, weird. Specifically, Death of the Family, like it has to be an intentional reference. I will look for that if I finish it.
Fascinating, yeah.
That's really interesting.
Is
Um,
it the face thing? Like, is it somebody puts on uh, their own face?
I've been focused on like what little broad story and character analysis I feel like I can do with what little I've seen here. I want to back off for a minute and do something that we don't
Mhm.
always do on ReQuest, just because
Yeah.
I'm curious to get more of your thoughts, Austin, and just to get a little bit more into opinion. If we were sign flipping this, do you have a best thing, worst thing?
Huh. I don't know if I offhand have a worse thing. Mm, yeah, I'm not sure. I think my best thing might be the relationship between the sisters because I really liked them. And I thought Harley Seinfeld and the girl from the Fallout show did a really good job in those roles. And I
Yeah,
liked their
yeah,
whole
the
family
acting's
dynamic.
killer all the way through those.
Yeah, exactly. Worst thing though, nothing's coming to me. I don't. What would your worst thing be?
Given that it's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, I felt like I had to ask you that question. It's really interesting
Yeah,
that
no,
you're.
it's like a real wrench because I'm like,
It's interesting that you're
yeah, what
struggling with
would be
it.
my worst thing?
It just like whether this is your bag or not. It's kind of
Mhm,
just what it ought to be. I feel like, right? Um,
mhm.
for me, it's the Jinx kid, and then we kill him quick, and so it's fine.
Oh, there you go. My
Uh,
worst thing
I
is that
just
they killed him too quick. I needed more.
Oh, really? Because I find that
No, I'm just
character
joking.
like that character's intentionally irritating, but that doesn't take away from the
Mhm,
fact that he's irritating.
mhm,
He was a little one note for me in comparison to a lot of the rest of these characters, and like you can have characters that are not especially deep, and I guess that's kind of the point of him. But it got a little redundant listening to him constantly complain that. I said the Jinx kid that powder is a jinx. Although maybe that plays better on a second viewing when I Vi at the end. By the way, how shocked were you when she punches her in the face?
Oh yeah, it was
Like holy,
crazy.
holy crap! I and then she says, that guy was right. Whatever his name is, you are a jinx. And I was like, well, she's just retaliating in anger right now. I but maybe that watch is better
Mhm,
when you know where that's going and what
mhm.
what that's a setup
Yeah,
for.
possibly. But at least with that guy you hate, now he is literally one-dimensional as he was crushed by rocks.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate him. That was just if I had to pick a worse thing, it's probably
No,
that
no, he's your
that
least
guy.
favorite character in all of fiction, Cap.
But yeah, I was not expecting like two characters of that quartet to get smashed and killed,
Mm.
and for it to be partly that girl's fault.
No, I
Uh,
mean, I figured they'd be there for the full adventure.
and that whole thing could have been so much more superficial. Like, there's a lot of plot points in this that are again typical until you realize what it's doing with it. You've got the the little sister that is unappreciated and feels like she's just tagging along and she's ruining everything. And then when she's told to stay home, she shows up anyway. And with this particular example, I was kind of with her when she showed up, which is really unusual. Usually, I would be going, okay, you idiot, like you're just going to cause problems. You've proven yourself to be a liability. Um, but she's like an expert marksman, and like she proves that she can. And again, I like that she's not like full on perfect. That was maybe a little over the top, like just how good she of a shot she is. Like I don't even understand how she got that good. Maybe they go to that place and shoot all the time. I don't know. But and yet other people seem surprised she was that good at it. So like I don't know. But when she when she's like Doc Brown just trying to invent something that works, and then
Hmm.
and then she shows up with with the exploding teddy bear or whatever it was, the monkey. Was it like the symbol monkey? I
Yes. Yeah.
and she's like, finally, I made this thing and I can help. I was kind of with her, and then she blows the whole place up, and there's this like constant motif of people doing things with the best of intentions and then retroactively realizing that the consequences of their actions. Like it's very Spider-Man in that way. Where sometimes it's here's a clear poor choice, and sometimes it's I mean you got to take a chance. You got to make a choice, and then retroactively it doesn't mean necessarily that you did anything morally wrong, but there are sometimes negative uh, consequences for positively chosen actions. And that's another one of those places where I get to the end and I'm like, okay, was she wrong because she I again has kind of proven herself to be a liability in the past and disobeyed her sister and showed back up and made things worse, or was she right to try to help because she is capable, and B, they actually needed her, even though because like she made things worse, but she didn't make things worse, Austin. Like I mean, like she got her friends killed. That's really bad. I but I don't know what happens to Vi or anybody else if she doesn't show. I don't know. Like it's very
Yeah, like maybe they
complicated.
all die if she doesn't.
Just on one viewing, I don't know how I feel about anybody's moral choices in this.
I mean, that's a good place to be in.
And then, how effective is? I'm liking this more as we're talking about it. How and like I liked it, but like it's so meaty. How powerful is that moment when Vander says to Vi, "Who are you willing to sacrifice?" Like
Oh yeah, that was a really good moment.
that's maybe
That's the moment where they're
my
talking
favorite
on
scene.
like on the bridge, I think, right?
I think it's.
Or am
I
I
said it's my
mixing that
favorite
up with a
scene, and now I
different
can't remember
scene?
where it is after you said that. But I think it's right around that cliffhanger between the second and third episode when the cops show up and the
Oh, okay.
enforcers and
Okay, so I think it's before the scene I'm thinking of. My brain's a little bit of it, like a scrambled mess. But
that's all right. That's I mean again, it's so complex
Mhm.
that having to talk about this immediately after watching it and knocking three of these out. But anyway, I but yeah, I think it's right around when she decides to try to turn herself in. But I could be wrong about that.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I mean, I really liked their relationship in general. Like most of the scenes that they had together were some of the best ones.
Yeah.
Even the part. Actually, okay, no, I am thinking of a different scene. 'Cause one I'm thinking of is where it's after that the guards come to the bar because that's where she's like, oh, they're gonna come back, like, obviously, and that scene's really good too.
Yeah. And characters that you expect to be kind of throwaway that keep coming back and being more important.
Mhm.
Like the right hand man enforcer, I think his name is Marcus. To the lady, the
It's in
the
everything.
Indian lady is in freaking everything. Yeah, it's. I only had to hear her say three words where I went, "Oh, it's
she's
that
got like
lady."
she's got like the most distinct voice, and the second she spoke, I was like, oh, I'm even seeing that lady now.
I can't remember. Did she show up in Penguin?
Yes, she is Maroni's wife in that.
Is she in both Penguin and Daredevil? I can't remember if
Oh
she shows up in
God,
Daredevil because she's always playing mob
I don't
bosses,
remember. Yeah,
and I think she's in Heroes. Like she's in every, and I'm positive she's in 24. Like she shows up in everything.
she's an X-Men 3. X-Men 3. That's the main thing I
Maybe
always
she's
think
not
of
in
her
24.
for.
I can't remember, but yes,
She's in
X-Men
Renfield.
3.
No, she is in 24.
She's in everything. But yeah, she's got the deepest female voice in Hollywood.
Oh, true, Robert. She's also in Creature Commandos.
Oh, is
She
she?
is just in everything. Yeah.
Voice is amazing. Um, and I think she dies in this too.
Yeah, I was surprised about that too. I was
Yeah,
like, oh my god. She also
it's
dies in
nuts.
everything.
That's true. Okay, so she's getting a little typecast. But I like that she's not straight up evil,
Hmm.
right? Like she's
Yeah.
trying to keep the peace the same way Vander is, and she's, I, with the elite and more at the top, but everybody's kind of just stuck in the situation that they're stuck in. I think Vander is a wonderfully tragic character
Hmm.
where I
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
once again sympathizing with the bureaucracy. Like I'm getting like it's a sucky situation. You need somebody to be proactive and to make the hard choices, and that's going to mean, as he says, you're sacrificing people. But on a personal level, you see why he's not willing to do that anymore, because he's lost too much and because he almost lost his own humanity over it, and so he's not the guy anymore. I think that's really important, and
Mm.
his friend, who's the bad guy with the messed up face, is also not the guy anymore, and has not learned that lesson and thinks that like how interesting is it that the least sympathetic guy, and you still get where he's coming from. He's sympathetic, but like the least likable, the most villainish character is the one that is pulling hardest for revolution in a world where indisputably you have an oppressed class. Like the character I
Hmm.
sympathize with the least in the show, he's not one of the elites. Every one of the elites we meet, I pretty much I sympathize with more than that guy who is just straight up lost himself as a comic book supervillain now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, speaking of comic book things, I also thought Vander, he kind of reminded me of what I
Silco.
think.
Silco is that bad. Hey, it sounds like a bad
Oh,
guy.
that's like a Last Avatar, Avatar Last Airbender villain. Um, no, I thought Vander also reminded me of like what Ragnarok thought it was doing with Odin, just done, a billion times better
Oh
and
yeah,
not as a joke.
absolutely. Robert says in Punisher, she's just a character's mom, but not a mob boss.
Damn, because
Yeah,
she's
she was in
also a
that.
lot of mob bosses. I
Oh
can't remember
man,
who she is in
there.
Creature Commandos though.
I'm not gonna be the one to make it, but there is a tier list to make of
Of that
of
lady's mob
characters
bosses?
played by that lady.
Absolutely. That's why we gotta watch Renfield, because we get to see her as another mob boss.
Spikes Lover, $5 super chat. Thanks, man. I had a similar experience to Cap, where it initially wasn't my thing, but it won me over, which, like you say, is often even better. Yeah, I talk about that a
Mhm.
lot, where I find that some of my favorite things are things that I did not care about in the first place and aren't usually even my genre, and it it's more impressive when it can captivate me and not be in a thing that uh, like what is that Pixar fantasy movie that came out a few years ago?
Oh,
I,
Onward.
Onward, yeah, which I liked a lot. I know some people didn't care for, but that movie impressed me more because I don't usually like fantasy things, and I really liked that. So
Hmm. No, for sure.
screw you, Austin. I like
No,
that
I
movie.
mean, that was the last movie I watched before COVID, before everything shut down. It was like literally the day before everything shut down.
Wow, I think I saw that in the theater. Anyway,
Yeah, I went with one of my brothers and sister, and it was like, oh, that was kind of lame. Oh, well, everything's shut down now. I guess
no,
that's
I
the only
did
movie I'm seeing in
because
the
I
theater
reviewed it
this
with
year.
Connor, and then we
Yes, yes, you did.
we reviewed the next one on Disney Plus because they dropped it directly there during COVID, during the lockdown.
Oh yeah, Soul,
The
right?
jazz musician movie. Yes, Soul. That's what that. And I like
Hmm.
that too. It's
Yeah, that
it's
one was
kind of
really good.
it's a little flawed, but I like it a lot.
No, I like that movie a lot. Like it kind of fumbles its ending, but
That's what I'm saying when I
uh,
say it's a little
mhm.
flawed. Yeah, but it's still worth it.
Oh, that's right, Robert. She is the madam at the brothel. See, I was thinking that, but then I was like, oh, but is she also a mob boss? Now I'm not sure.
Frazzy, Arcane is such a good one season show. Well, and it got a second season.
Oh,
Oh,
I guess he doesn't like it.
he's doing that. Too bad that he. Okay, I'm I was hearing a lot of it doesn't live up to the first season, but it's still decent. And interestingly, the second season also has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, but I mean, TV shows are weird on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
Just because, like, especially when you get into other seasons, the only people that are still reviewing it are people that are like in it. You know what I mean? So like, they tend to be less judgmental than movies are.
that makes sense. But you'd think at least one of them would be like, "Wow, this is quite a step down."
For sure, for sure.
Especially if
Then,
everybody else is saying that. Like, I'm a little surprised there's not one. I'm surprised it's not 97% or something. Like,
mhm.
out of 30, there's not one person that went, "This is enough of a step down. I'm going to go thumbs down on it." Like, that's a little surprising to me.
That, and I think with shows too, sometimes I don't know if it's every time, but like they'll only be given like a chunk of episodes, so it's not always all of it either. So sometimes it's like, oh, that was really good, but it might like totally fall off as it goes along.
Frazzy says it's
So,
fine until the last episode. Honestly, bungles the ending,
oh, there
and
you go.
the general character writing isn't as good as season one. That's unfortunate, but that it's got better track record than Death Note. So there's that.
Though Netflix did make the better Death Note.
I need you to stop saying that every single time I bring up Death Note. I'm ready for that trend to end.
I'm just waiting for them to make the sequel about the Life Note. God damn it.
We're almost at an hour, Austin. Anything else you want to say about the show before we wrap up? Before we wrap up, I guess not surprisingly, we're kind of with the consensus with this. Yeah, it's good.
Hmm.
It's quite
No,
good.
I think it's really good. Hmm. Yeah, I don't really have anything else. It was quite good.
Would you say kind of more your thing than my thing?
Oh, 100%. But I'm more of a fantasy guy than you are.
Yeah, but and you said that a lot more fantasy things go to these places these days, and so like I a little bit out on a limb and I've not seen enough, and so I'm maybe naive and easily impressed by this. But when we bring uh like uh deep, I'm trying not to use all the same words I've already used in this discussion. But when we have like complex characters with dimension that are not dementia, but dimension that are
Although, let's have a dementia-ridden fantasy franchise.
where it's not just straight up good versus evil, and those stories are worth telling. Don't get me wrong, but I like when we get when we get into more of the science fiction side of the storytelling, where we can still like question human condition at the same time as we've got magic in a thing. I really that's why I love that blend. I'm like, why can't I have the character focus of science fiction with the fun world building of fantasy? Uh,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think with stuff too, like like Game of Thrones and whatnot, I think there's been more of a push into like gray morality and fantasy.
mhm.
So that was all I meant with that. But like, I do think that is kind of the trend of where the genre is going. But when it's done well, it's done well. And I agree with you. Like, I think both can be done well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's got that in common with Dune. It's kind of like that,
Oh, sure.
where that blurs the line real hard. This not as much. This is more straight up fantasy, but it's Dune-ish in that it's well, and also just because it uses the word house a lot. There's a few things that reminded me of Dune with this, but just in that again it is real character driven and real politically driven, and it's very human condition. Because the thing that I'm not a Dune guy, and the thing that's always put me off to Dune is it's got a lot of fantasy tropes,
Yeah, and I
And so
think
when
that's
people
why I like
say,
Dune when I'm not a sci-fi guy.
yeah, because when people talk about that, like one of the great science fiction franchise or properties, like you're right, but that should grab me more than it does, and it doesn't because it's so fantasy-esque. So anyway, I guess that's blurring the lines
I
more than this
also
is, but it reminded me
I've
of
never
that.
had this thought until you described it that way. That might also be why I don't fully gel with what's his face, Villeneuve's Dune. Where like that doesn't feel like the book to me. I like the second movie a lot more than the first one, but it still just kind of isn't how I see Dune. So that might be why, because I feel like he has more of that sci-fi lens, maybe,
Yeah,
or maybe like I'm
interestingly,
looking at it more from the fantasy
and
way, I
like we
guess.
always do, now we're off the review, but the but I could see the argument for and against Austin. The guy who makes 2049 should be the guy that makes Dune, and the guy who made 2049 should absolutely not be the guy that makes Dune. Like I could see both of those arguments 50-50,
Hmm. No, I mean I think it worked really well for the second part. Just I didn't like the first one,
which I
but
still haven't seen. Probably the only person on the planet that hasn't watched that. Bob the Hun, $5 super chat. I like how the upper city people are portrayed. They're not thrown under the bus, and that sticks throughout the season. The ending in particular. Yeah, that was one of the things I was most impressed with it
hmm.
myself. And that's
Well, I
not.
think it helps carve its own way in the and like you said, like the kind of rebel empire thing. Like we've done
Yeah.
it a million times. Like that kind of helps carve your own path.
Well, and it just feels more like you're mining real truth in it. Like this feels
Mm.
more like what the real world is like. It's so easy to vilify people that are part of a bad system. And so my saying that I'm glad that some of those characters aren't entirely unsympathetic is not me condoning that system. It's me saying it's always more complicated than that.
Well, and it's you have a story to tell. You're not just going to the well.
That yeah, that too. Dan Schneider, $10
You're
super
not
chat.
like, oh, here's the elves because Lord of the Rings.
I Dan Schneider put it in a super chat and says there is some
Mhm.
Xavier versus Magneto type storytelling in this show that I think Cap will really appreciate. Yeah, well, yeah, and like I said, I'm seeing like 3 or 4 of those. I Yeah, like it's the most of that trope I've ever seen, or that motif, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever seen in One Piece before. That
This should
that
really be your
thematically
favorite show.
is the idea. Yeah, because it's like you got Magneto and Xavier and Clark and Lex, and give me 2 or 3 more of them, like all of those.
It boils the entire world down to there are Xaviers, there are Magnetos.
What's another example of that? Like Anakin and Obi-Wan. Like there's so many of these.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Anyway, he says, personally, I find the villain more sympathetic than Magneto, to be fully honest. Interesting. I don't
Yeah,
have that
I
so
mean,
far, but on one viewing, I did not fully understand, to be fair, the background with him and Vander. Like,
mhm.
admittedly, I don't entirely get why in the past Vander tried to kill him, and I wasn't sure if I missed something or if that becomes clearer after this. So I put a question mark on that before I wanted to complain about it or make it my worst thing. I just don't know yet, and I'm not finished
Yeah, that could be
watching
like
it.
a
So
Black Panther thing where maybe we get that reveal later.
yeah, maybe so. People are talking about Castlevania. I like that show a lot. I've not seen the 4th season. What?
No, Danson's comment just made me laugh. Where it's like, okay, we have Xavier, Magneto, not Lois and Clark, Clark and Lex, the Fox and the Hound,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. That is an example, though. Certainly.
no, it is an example. It just I don't know why. It just that just being the first one that popped up in chat just kind of made me laugh. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not the
It was just
first
so
one
out of
I
pocket.
expected to show up. No,
That's what I
no.
mean. It was just so out of pocket. Like that is correct. That is also a great Disney movie. I'm not trashing that.
Uh,
Anyways.
you sort of have it with Batman and Jason Todd, but not exactly.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
People are saying that Vrazzy and Dan Schneider, apparently you're not supposed to know until later. So
Oh,
I
okay.
did not miss something with that. Apparently,
Hmm.
that's good. I mean, the storytelling is too smart for there not to be a reason for that. I just didn't know if I
Hmm.
missed it or if it's later. So
No, I mean that's cool. That there's still kind of seeds to uncover.
yeah, well, that's why I hesitated doing too much analysis with this because I don't have the whole piece, but I have enough of
Hmm.
it because that first act is in 3 acts that I'm going. I've got a lot to work with here. I guess what I'm saying is, if this was a movie by itself and you had to wait a couple of years for the sequel, like, I mean, it's very Star Wars in that way, like, right? Like, this is a whole story. I mean, uh, it ends tragically and on more of a cliffhanger than that, obviously. So you're in more of an Empire place with this, but I like that once you have the whole trilogy is a 3 act thing, but there's plenty to you know noodle and dissect and deal with that first one. It reminded me a lot of Alita Battle Angel in that way, except I'll probably never get the rest of them.
Yeah, I've still never seen that, but that probably will never be finished. James Cameron stopped making 18,000 Avatar movies. No one cares. Go
Yeah,
make that.
make the sequel to the movie that not only I really really
No
liked,
one watched.
but yeah, well, I don't care. I really liked it, and it's not. There's no ending. Like, it's not over when you get to the end of it.
Yeah, but Cap, the Fire Nation has to attack in Avatar 3. I don't think you understand.
I don't care. I
Cap, the Fire Nation is here.
I don't care. That Connor guy. This show really respects all of its characters, which makes the moral ambiguity progressively more complicated. Yeah, no, that's great. And my guess
Mhm.
is, it's always going to be up to the viewer, and you'll have resolutions to things. But the a master class could probably be taught on what the ethical choices in any one of these situations. Dan Snyder, $5 super chat, and then we'll leave it at this and announce the next week's thing. Also, the best stuff is yet to come. If you're on the fence about watching more, it does get a lot better. Some of the best stuff for you to analyze. Yeah, I'll have to finish it. I don't know if I'll get a chance to talk about it again, but I'll definitely have to finish
I also have the Trek Spirits theme stuck in my head now because of the beginning of that comment.
it. That's for a DS9 episode.
Oh, okay. I had no idea where that came from.
Oh yeah, that is Avery Brooks singing that in the middle of a DS9 episode in season 6, I believe. Anyway,
Was the
next.
best yet to come after that, or
Not really. Seven's not the
ah,
best. So Austin, well, you know what? No, the best episode of that series is in the last season. So yeah, that overall
he
season
was right.
is a little bit of a drop off, but it's got a couple of individual bangers, most certainly, because you've got in the Pale Moonlight in that season, and I think you've also got, is it Waltz, or I'm rusty. I'm forgetting the episode with Cisco and Ducat on the planet, but that's also killer.
But then the rest of the episodes are just mash.
What does that mean? Mash.
I assume that's how it works. You have bangers and then you have mash. It
Oh,
can either
I
be one
see.
or the other.
I see. The,
I assume that's how the scale works.
uh, Jokes might not be funnier when you explain them. Sometimes it's necessary.
No,
Um,
I thought of that joke in something I was working on last night, and then it popped up perfectly. I was like, "Oh, I
that's
can test
amazing.
that out," and it didn't work. It felt completely
Hey,
flat.
hey, that it might have just been your audience though. That might just be I'm dense and it's late and I don't know. Wrong's darker than death or night. That's another excellent season 7 episode. Anyway, um,
Oh, okay.
Next week we're gonna do something completely different. I don't know that anybody is gonna watch us talk about this, but Ironic Pinball
Oh,
wants us to watch a short two-part documentary from 1980 on silent films. This is a
oh,
celebration of the
interesting.
American silent film from 1980, and I have a YouTube link. So everyone can watch this if they really want to for free on YouTube. So now I feel like we're just having to go to a film class and then do a report on this historic movie that we're having to watch, Austin, or movie about
And that
history.
sounds fun. I don't know that anyone will be interested in us talking about it, but it sounds fun, so I'm
Oh,
down.
oh, good. Well, I'm glad you're at least up for it.
Hmm.
It'll get 5 views, but that's fine. We'll make it just for Ironic Pinball.
Exactly. It'll get 0 ratings plus one.
Dan's Den, I know this documentary. I'll watch it. Well, there's always somebody that knows what we're doing, even if I've never heard of it. He says it's a weird choice, though, but definitely an interesting pivot. Guys, thanks.
That is
Thanks a
correct.
ton for watching. If you happen to be watching right now live and you want to keep hanging out with us, Austin and I are going to do another stream just a few minutes after this. Give us 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to come back and we're going to do a discussion. Probably just an hour. It's getting late, so this might end up being a two-parter, but we're going to at least start a discussion on the weirdest developments in the history of superhero movies. And so we're going to go kind of revisit our discussion on the overall history of superhero movies and just hit some of the weirdest, most surprising, most difficult to predict things that happen in movies and in the making of movies. And Austin and I each have put a list together. We're going to kind of just jump back and forth and throw these at each other. We're going to jump all over the history of superhero movies, and we're gonna do that for an hour tonight. And if we've got a bunch of stuff left on our list, we'll do a part 2 down the road. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again real soon. Robert says everybody has seen that document. I've never heard of this. So not
We're
everybody.
just plebs.
Apparently we are. Dan Schneider, by an hour, you mean 2 hours just because you said it. It will certainly be longer. I mean, it's possible. It is possible.
Never know. We're just two wild and crazy guys.
Look, things don't always go according to plan, okay? And then everybody loses their minds.
Then we get 0 ratings.
Austin, thanks for doing this with me as always, man.
Yeah, that was fun talking to you.
See you guys soon. I was Captain Logan. This was Austin the Day Ghost.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye, folks.